Crepea joining us from the Oregonian, once covered Auburn and now covers Oregon, and covering also Pac whatever media days. I don't know what. James, thanks for the time. Is it still the Pac-12?
I mean, in name only, isn't it, Paul? I mean, I guess while they're still here, while the dinner's still getting cold for UCLA and USC, or it's getting warm somewhere else, I guess it's still the Pac-12. I guess they still have the trademarks, but in my question to the commissioner this morning, I refer to them as the Pac-10 because, as far as I'm concerned, that's what's bound together, going forward.
Listen, commissioners can often make reputations. It's hard to completely make a fool out of yourself at media days, although I think most agree that Jim Phillips did last week at the ACC. How did the new commissioner out there do, considering he had been a big talker during the talking season, but how did he handle the moment today, considering there are a lot of serious questions?
I thought, as a whole, given the precarious position he's in, right, where he can't come out, if he doesn't have the ability to come out and make some major landmark news announcement or address a major positive, uplifting announcement, when you're in that spot, you're already kind of grading on a curve. So let's, call that what it is. Do I think he did better than Jim Phillips in that speech? And I watched that last week. Yes, I did think that George Pickens handled things better and a bit more frankly and directly even in his own opening remarks than Jim Phillips did. Having said that, not everything was great. Yeah, he took a shot at the Big 12 there, and he talked. On one hand, he talked about collegiality, and then he took a shot at the Big 12 and he then said, "Well, probably wasn't the most collegial thing I did, but that was the conference that was lobbing every which grenade at us to try and destabilize us over the last month. So, yeah, I'm going to punch back here or there." And I think that helps for his base, for his presidents and chancellors and ADs, who, again, at least for the next 2 years, are bound together. So I think that was good. Where I think he came up short a bit is not just because I happen to ask the question, but there are going to be others and plenty others who will over the next couple of years, is, well, what about playoff access? And how are you going to try to convince Kevin Warren and Greg Sankey of the Big Ten and SEC that this conference with 10 members is still of value and of value enough to be worth any access at all and any cut of the revenue from the playoff at all starting in 2026 going forward? Because if they're unable to convey that, then we can all go home in terms of from the league's perspective. If any league doesn't have access to the postseason, then the league will cease to exist, whether that's the Pac-12 or Big 12 or one of the G5 conferences, whoever it is. If they don't have access to the playoffs starting in 26, then it doesn't matter who they're aligned with.
James, forgetting the rhetoric that we hear at things like this, but in terms of what you think is really going on relating to Oregon, Washington, or especially, what's been going on and what do you think happens next in the world of expansion, assuming anything does?
What I know is going on so far, not just because people told me, but because I have certain documents so far, and hopefully we'll be coming into possession of several more, is, as you would expect after the news on June 30th and July 1st, that there were many the meeting at Oregon specifically, and I'm sure, quite frankly, any school in the league would be remiss if there weren't. And not just that day, the league had a meeting with presidents and ADs, and et cetera, of course. And then obviously with coaches, sure. But I'm talking about internally, without the conference. I'm talking about presidents and ADs and general counsel's office meeting. That's documented. And like I say, I won't be alone in having that. So that I know has occurred and will probably continue to occur. And like I say, everybody should be doing that now, and across college sports, not just for Oregon, Washington, or the remaining 10 schools in the Pac-12. Everybody should be doing that. If you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC right now, you should be having those conversations. But these were very specific. Every which nature of conversation, obviously that remains to be seen. What do I think will eventually get there? I think right now everybody is in the information gathering stage. It's not a satisfying answer, Paul, I admit. But I think the first thing is what is the Big Ten deal? That's a first major domino. The second domino becomes, even when the Pac-12 gets out of its exclusive window to negotiate with ESPN, what is the actual market value then at that point for this league's media rights? Until you know what the whole number is, how you chop up the pie and if there's unequal revenue streams and how you go about doing, if you award it based on television games on a national scale versus on the conference network, all those are conversations that come after you even know what the number is. And if the number isn't even close to big enough at all, well, then obviously we're thrown into the HOV lane in terms of further discussions about realignment potentially. But I think now, like I say, it's an unsatisfying answer, especially for Oregon fans. Many of the Oregon fans, at least that have engaged with me over the last month, they've wanted to join the Big Ten before even USC and UCLA left to join the Big Ten. So I'm not saying everybody, I'm painting with a broad brush, but many of the fans want that to be the end result. And I think that very well could be what ends up happening, but I don't think that's something that's going to happen in the next 3, 6, or even 9 months or a year.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.